Is your brain wired for love? And if so, is it wired perhaps differently than your partner's brain? Hi, I'm Chris, I'm a doctor, I've read this book, I'll summarise all of the key learning that could potentially help you get a bit more out of your relationship by understanding your partner better. Now, firstly, one needs to take a step back. What does somebody want in a relationship? Arguably, it's to be important to the other person. Now, this means very important. This means not taking second or third place to hobbies, perhaps addictions, other friends. Because what we want to do is feel as if we're in a happy couple bubble together that gives security. And partners can make love and avoid war, as the cliche goes, if their security-seeking parts of the brain are simply put at ease. And you could divide people into 3 different types in terms of how they interact in a relationship: anchors, islands, and waves. Now, an anchor is the ideal partner that perhaps you may be yourself already. These people are called securely attached. They would have this kind of ethos that 2 can be better than 1. Now, I won't focus too much on those, because if you're an anchor, then that's good for you, or if your partner's an anchor, great. But it would help perhaps understanding more the islands and the waves. Because an island, these are more insecurely avoidant. So their typical motto may be, I want you in the house, just not in my room unless I ask. Whereas a wave is insecurely ambivalent, and perhaps a wave is the most challenging type of person to have a relationship with. And if only you loved me like I love you would be the kind of mantra that would come out of a wave's mouth often. So focusing back on islands, people who are islands often confuse independence and autonomy with their adaptations to neglect. And in order to achieve true autonomy, it's necessary to first experience being loved and taken care of another person. And an island's often unaware that perhaps their behaviour is a consequence of a need to depend and connect, having not been fully met in childhood, perhaps with a dismissive or insensitive parenting relationship toward them. Now, difficulties can arise if a partner's an island or if there's 2 islands, because they may struggle to maintain close physical contact and in addition get near to the other person. And an island may feel that they're intruded upon or ashamed of their reactions to close contact, and they may try and conceal this with a range of things, including excuses, avoidance, and even anger. If you're arguing with an island, the main thing is to be reassuring, calm, and rational. I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense, or something along the lines with, you're right, you make a good point. Now, that's not just agreeing with somebody, but when there's an island who's wild, in essence, they're not thinking, they're just arguing, they'll be even worse at communicating their feelings and picking up on the feelings of the other person. Now, waves are challenging. Insecurity can appear bottomless, and the need for frequent contact and reassurance can appear very unreasonable to the other partner. And under stress, a wave may insist on too much verbal assurances, and that can put pressure on the relationship and the other partner. And this is almost the reverse of what an island does, because when there's strain, an island may go and isolate themselves, whereas a wave would kind of leap on to the other person and wanting kind of a dramatic, emotional reassurance. And under stress, a wave is almost a tsunami, particularly punishing, unforgiving, inflexible. And when arguing with a wave, it's important to talk through non-verbal friendliness. So that would be kind of touching them gently, calmly, and trying to soothe them with your voice, and when you do speak, reassure them. So for many people, closeness brings both the promise of safety and security. So as far as relationships go, it's important to have closeness and the promise of safety and security. But equally, that's where a double-edged sword comes in, because a threat to that safety and security can then make the relationship worse. And we've all, well, most of us have had relationships and been hurt by people. And the paradox is that we can actually only be healed by trusting people in future. And it is seemingly entirely possible by spending time with an anchor to just slowly evolve over time to become an anchor yourself in a kind of secure relationship with another person. And it may be, however, if you're with a wave, the best advice may be to split up from your relationship and even be something that rhymes with anchor for a while until you find somebody who's better for you. However, that's just a little by-the-by. Now, partners who are experts on another know actually how to please and soothe each other's. And everybody has a busy life, and in essence, getting a kind of morning and bedtime ritual can be very helpful so that you can have special time with each other. In essence, a reunion ritual where you stay connected, because often people will just leave the house or come back and barely speak to the other one. So there's a real importance for actually going away, saying goodbye, and coming back and greeting your partner. Now, ideally, your partner really should be the primary go-to person for each other, and that's where it's very frightening. And there's this concept of a third wheel, which is another thing. It could be another person, or it could be another hobby, it could be an addiction, it could be a number of things. But what happens potentially troublesome is if one partner is consulting or discussing with a third wheel, cutting the primary partner out. Now, this book's aimed at kind of monogamous relationships. If you want a slightly different view, I've summarized a book on polygamy. I probably didn't say it right then. I may have said it right in my summary. You'll have to check it out. But the point is that people can stay connected if they can fight well with each other. And by that, they can listen to the other person and aim for a win-win. Often just establishing good, solid eye contact can actually help re-engage you with your partner so you don't become distant. Because what we really want to do is minimize stress for ourselves and our partner and other people, to be perfectly honest with you. So you want to have a kind of safe zone together. There's no point in being hostile with your partner, because really you should be supportive of each other. And that's a very key thing. Your allies against hostile forces, not hostile forces together. Let's talk about autonomy, because there's a bit of a dichotomy here, that people want autonomy and they'll often say, well, I'll see myself as an individual first and as a couple second, and they may prioritize their own personal needs over the needs of that couple. And that may seem fine to that person, but when the shoe moves to the other foot and the other partner says a similar thing and wants to behave in a kind of autonomous fashion, often this creates friction, because the partner themselves then feels unimportant, and this sense of independence can potentially be very challenging in situations where really people should be dependent on each other to feel protected. And in essence, everybody does have different chronotypes. I've written about them. I'll put a summary below, a link to my website. But people wake at different times and perhaps function better. Knowing what your chronotype is when you function best and your partner's is can help. Now, in essence, you could try and adjust your chronotype to suit the partner. That may be something to consider. I'll leave that with yourselves to think about. Rather than react out of threat, just remember, be focused on confirming security and safety. So when, as a couple, you find that you're handling thirds well, that can actually bring you close together. Now, a therapist, this book was initially written by a kind of couple therapist. They mentioned that if a couple attend a therapy session, it's evidently clear about who has issues with thirds. And it's because how they speak about the partner, not even with. They're trying to constantly marginalize their primary partner. And that's obviously not the aim. Now, islands may feel safer when with a third, which could be the hobby, rather than relaxing with a partner. Whereas a wave, as I said, they are quite volatile at times, and they're less likely to kind of engage in a kind of parallel play, say one person on a computer, one person on a computer in the same room. They are more likely actually to seek other people's attention, in essence more likely to bring in thirds, and often sadly with an intent to punish the partner whom they perceive may have been rejecting them in some way. But just remember, when you're fighting, what you say is often irrelevant. It's just blah blah blah. Why are we even having this discussion? You may want to simply stop, say I love you, and try and work out what works for them, not just yourself. And if the bond between both of you is so strong that you can readily fend off thirds, it will bring you together, and being light-hearted rather than feeling threatened or jealous. And there is that thing about fighting smart, win-win situation. And stick with the principle that what's good for me and good for you. And that you don't need to keep a tally of things, and you don't need to resolve every conflict either. But what you do need to do is try your best to effectively deal with the issues together. And the other thing I'll just say is that eye contact is really good at rekindling your love. So I will gaze at this and using the power of my gaze, attempt to get you to watch more of my YouTube videos. I'll see you next time.